So where we are right now on the battlefield in Gettysburg is what is known as the Valley of Death. The Valley of Death was an area between Little Round Top and Devil's Den, and it was referred to as a Valley of Death, well, for obvious reasons. It was a Valley of Death on July the 2nd, 1863, as a lot of the Confederate troops started pushing in and pushing the Union left. So this is a very cool look at the Valley of Death here in Gettysburg, and also Little Round Top. As you can see, straight up here, it's got rehabilitation work going on right now, so we really can't go up to the 20th Maine positions or Colonel Strong Vincent's position. But they will be up there on July the 2nd, 1863. And down here you will have Union artillery troops. You will have Union troops holding Devil's, or trying to hold Devil's Den, and the slaughter pen, which is straight ahead of us in that area. And this is basically going to be the scene of some savage and hectic fighting on the afternoon of July the 2nd. And then it's going to spill into the triangular field and the wheat field, which is directly through the rose woods to our right. These are the rosewoods. On the other side of that is the wheat field. So let's take a look at some of the things here around Devil's Den, the Valley of Death, and Slaughter Pen. And let's show you some of the cool things that you can see here and associate with the Battle of Gettysburg when you come. So there were stories upon stories of the guys who fought here in the Devil's Den area, in the Valley of Death area, that you can read the accounts from July the 2nd, 1863. And when you come here, if you'll read those accounts before you come, it'll really give you a sense of what the fighting was like. Guys were saying they were, out here in the middle of the rocks, and they were dead, just scattered all over the field. And this is pretty cool and interesting stories for you to read when you come. But we're going to take a look at some of the monuments here and give you a look at Devil's Den, the Valley of Death, and the Slaughter Pen for yourself. So where we are right now is the positions of Captain James Smith, 4th New York Independent Battery. These are the positions of his cannon, and he is supporting the Union troops that is in front of him on Devil's Den, trying to repel the assault against Alabama, Texas troops, and other Confederate troops that are coming in across the fields here. So he has his cannon here, and he is laying down fire in this direction, trying to support these troops. But he knows eventually that his guns are going to get taken. And he had 4 guns posted on the height above us as well on Devil's Den at 2 p.m. on July the 2nd. He had these 2 guns in this position, and after the capture of the 3 guns in the advanced position on top of Devil's Den and the repulse of their supports, this section opened fire with great effect on the Confederate forces advancing up the valley. At 6 p.m., this section was moved to the right near Winslow's battery and then to the rear. So this is the 6th New Jersey Volunteers Memorial in their position that they held here at Devil's Den, or the Valley of Death. And they were up under the command of Lieutenant Colonel S.R. Gillickson of the 3rd Brigade, Burlington's Division, 2nd Division, 3rd Corps. And this was erected by the state of New Jersey in 1888. On the afternoon of July the 2nd, 1863, they held this position, and they were detached from the brigade and supported by batteries on Cemetery Ridge on July the 3rd. When they were in this position, they had 5 killed, 29 wounded, 7 missing, for a total of 41 men lost to actions here in Gettysburg. And this is a view of their positions here in the Valley of Death. So right here in front of us is the Devil's Den area of the battlefield, where on the afternoon of July the 2nd, 1863, General John Bell Hood's Confederates advanced from the Rocky Gorge to our left, which is known as the Slaughter Pen, and come into this area of Devil's Den, held by men of the 4th Maine. What you're looking at is the monument to the 4th Maine. the men that held this area of Devil's Den. And they had a lot of casualties in this area on the afternoon of July the 2nd. You can just imagine the moans and screams of the dead and dying men here, the wounded men. And this is a pretty neat spot on the battlefield. Okay, so we're in the slaughter pen area of the Gettysburg battlefield, and if you look dead ahead of us, there's a rock right there with a crack that runs right down the middle. And a very famous Alexander Gardner photo was taken in that position after the Battle of Gettysburg. And this is that photo that is taken from somewhere in the spot I'm standing, or near the spot I'm standing now. And I'll throw a bigger copy of this photo up, of course. But this photo was taken here at this slaughter pen, and this is that position where I am standing now. And of course you see the Confederate dead laying in front of the rock where they fell. And this is one of the places on the battlefield you could come and actually see and match up that exact spot of that photo. So here's a closer look at the rock, and the body of that Confederate soldier was laying right here. And pretty cool to see this in person. So if you come to Devil's Den, the slaughter pen area of the battlefield, look for this spot. It's right in front of the parking. So off camera, I took a few moments to kind of soak that in for myself. That's a spot I've always wanted to visit here in Gettysburg. And the last time I was here, it was kind of hard to do. So pretty cool, a little personal experience for me. And standing over there, I could certainly tell you that there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind. So I don't know, pretty somber place here. So we were talking about the main troops that held this position and the Confederates that was assaulting this position. And behind me is the area of the Rocky Gorge that the Confederates from Alabama, Georgia were advancing up. And then on the right you have the Texans advancing. And if you look behind me, well, this is Devil's Den. And how Devil's Den got its name is something a lot of people want to know. And the truth is, I don't think anybody really knows. It just, after the battle, started to be called Devil's Den. Some people say it was before the battle, but I don't think anybody really knows the whole truth of why it's called Devil's Den. So now we're walking into Devil's Den itself and the formation of rocks. And when you come here, be careful. Oh, there's a bunny. A lot of bunnies out here too. But when you come here to Devil's Den, take a little stroll in the rocks. Just don't graffiti the rocks. They've had a lot of problems out of that in the past. And if you look closely at some of these rocks, they actually chiseled away, graffiti off of a lot of these rocks. And some of the graffiti you could probably still see in certain spots today. But I just want to give you a glance at Devil's Den itself, where on the afternoon of July the 2nd, there were a lot of people here fighting amongst these rocks, both Confederate and Union. And there's a cave you could actually climb back into here in Devil's Den, made naturally by the rocks. And you can see it in there. But we're not climbing in there. No, sir. So I couldn't imagine actually being one of the Confederate or Union soldiers fighting in these rocks. I mean, rocks echo. It's even a lot louder in here now with me just talking. And you've got cannon fire, musket fire, and you're fighting amongst these boulders. Sounds elevated, screams of the dying and wounded are filling the air around you. And this is stuff that guys wrote about who experienced the fighting here. And you can actually go back and read accounts of this. And men like the 4th Maine and the Alabama and Georgia troops. So we're gonna make our way up to the top of Devil's Den, and we'll see a little bit more here. So this is the area where Benning's brigade of Hood's division attacked from on their way up to Devil's Den, the Slaughter Pen, and Little Round Top. This was the 2nd, 15th, 17th, 20th Georgia Infantry positions right in front of us where they come up. And they formed in the line about 4 o'clock p.m. in the rear of Law and Robertson's brigades and moved forward in support and took active part in the conflict, which resulted in the capture of Devil's Den, together with a number of prisoners and 3 guns of Smith's 4th New York Battery, which we were talking about on the Valley of Death portion of this video. And this is a portion of the field which they charged across. You can see the triangular field, and this is well, something you don't want to walk through right now, but this is the landscape that they come through when they charged Devil's Den. And you can see the area of advance directly to our front in the distant hills. So we are in the Confederate positions of Longstreet's approach on July the 2nd. Well, unfortunately, I was wanting to go to the Alabama Monument, but you can't get to it because of more renovations that's going on along Big Round Top and Little Round Top. So they got the area closed off. So this is about the only place that we can actually get a good vantage point of Longstreet's approach here. And we're in the area of Longstreet's Corps, Hood's Division, Army of Northern Virginia, and we're in the positions of Henry's Battalion and Bachman's Battery. And behind me, you can see some headquarters and also Little Round Top and Big Round Top. And this was the view of Longstreet's men as they approached Little and Big Round Tops on July the 2nd, 1863, 160 years ago today. And it's pretty neat to stand here and be able to get this vantage point of the Confederates and what they would have seen as they pushed along this field on the afternoon of July the 2nd. So this is the Confederate viewpoint here in Gettysburg on this day 160 years ago. So in this position, you can actually see the triangular field and the approach of Robertson's brigade of the 1st, 4th, 5th Texas, and the 3rd Arkansas Infantry. And they arrived on the field about 4 o'clock p.m. on July the 2nd. They advanced against the Union positions. The 4th and 5th Texas joined the attack on Little Round Top, which continued until dark. The 1st Texas and 3rd Arkansas attacked and assisted in taking Devil's Den and then Rocky Ridge with a number of prisoners, and they captured 3 guns of Smith's 4th New York Battery as well. And You can see the triangular field in the distance. You can see their line of advance. And I don't think the camera's going to do it justice, but if you actually come here, if you actually do come to Gettysburg, to this position, you'll actually see the treacherous terrain here that they had to cover. It is something else, I'll tell you. It's a really steep incline, and I couldn't imagine being these guys of Arkansas and Texas taking this position, coming up these slopes up under enemy fire. And the Texans had really an unsung part in this whole thing, but they demonstrated the absolute most courageous acts of bravery displayed here on July the 2nd. And I do urge you to kind of read up and explore the Texas history here of the Texas regiments that took Devil's Den. I don't think they get enough credit because they showed a lot of bravery on July the 2nd. And there's many stories of both Confederate and Union regiments that are kind of not studied about a whole lot, that showed this kind of bravery here during the Battle of Gettysburg. All right, so now what we're looking at is actually Smith's artillery battery that was here on top of Little Round Top. And this was his battery that of the 4th New York that was overlooking the triangular field and the approaches here to Devil's Den. These guns were captured. They were captured by Texas and Arkansas elements and Alabama and Georgia elements when they captured Devil's Den here. These guns were overrun. The guns we were at before, they took the guns up, got them out of here, and went to the rear. And these are the guns of Smith's battery that were actually captured. And here is a memorial to the 4th New York Independent Battery of Smith's Division. And this is his Artillery Brigade, 3rd Corps. And they were here on July the 2nd, 1863 from 2 to 5 p.m. So very nice memorial here on top of Little Round Top to those guys. So right now we're at the very summit, if you'll say, of Devil's Den. And this is the monument to the 99th Pennsylvania Infantry, who fought on this line along with the main men on the afternoon of July the 2nd, 1863. Present at Gettysburg was 339 officers and men killed and died of wounds, 1 officer, 24 men wounded, 4 officers and 70 men captured or missing. A total of 11 men missing 11 men, total of 110 casualties. So this interpretive plaque is telling a really neat story about Colonel Augustus Van Horn Ellis and the men of the 124th New York as they watched the Confederates advance through the triangular field straight to our front. They watched them as the 4th New York Battery pounded their positions, and the 1st Texas come in. They went behind a stone wall that's directly to our front, and they started getting deadly fire in on this position on that artillery battery. Well, scrambling over the wall, they charged across the triangular field, and the 124th returned deadly fire, and the Texans hesitated. It kind of stalled them for a minute. And Ellis said to Major James Cromwell, "The men must see us today." They mounted their horses, they jumped over that stone wall, and they charged the Texans. And Ellis and Cromwell were killed during that attack. Battered and leaderless, the 124th lost the momentum they had and bought an hour's time before a fierce wave of Confederates overwhelmed the New Yorkers. So if you were standing here 160 years ago today, this afternoon, you could have saw that that famous charge by Ellis and Cromwell as they were both killed during that advance. So we're standing here amongst the right near the triangular field. Here at Gettysburg, 50,000 men became casualties. And whether that meant they were killed in battle, wounded, whatever, Gettysburg was turned into one big hospital. The entire town and outskirts of town served as hospitals to the wounded soldiers. But out here on the battlefield, which was once farms and wheat fields and peach orchards for the farmers here in the area, this was now a blood-soaked graveyard. Dead men lie everywhere out here. The wounded and dying lie out here. And also, the wildlife started to feed on the bodies. In the hot July summer sun, the bodies would bloat and the stench would fill the air here amongst the battlefield and around Gettysburg. So what we have here is, in the area of the triangular field, an interpretive plaque kind of talking about the armies, that they didn't have time to stop and bury the dead and tend to the dead. They would dig shallow graves for them and just stick them right where they lay. And then later on, they would come back and retrieve those bodies. And then the Confederates, well, it would be days before they would come back out here to retrieve the bodies. So what you had was bodies of men lying all over this field here. And a lot of the citizens of Gettysburg, well, this is what they had to deal with. So as you look across this field, you can just imagine the carnage and the aftermath of battle. The battles for the peach orchard. The Confederates held this ground we're in now after the battles of the peach orchard and the wheat field. They were fighting to control Little Round Top and Devil's Den. And this is looking out toward that direction. But this ground was covered with the bodies of the dead, dying, and wounded. And then they will lay here for some time before they were actually able to be buried properly. And this went on for a long time after the battle, bodies being exhumed. There's still probably some still out here that hasn't been located. So where you walk here in Gettysburg, you never know what's up under your feet. So where we're headed now is probably the most photographed position here on the entire battlefield of Gettysburg. It's the place that everybody wants to see and visit. It's probably one of the most famous photographs that was taken by Alexander Garner here in Gettysburg as well. Well, this is the famed sharpshooter's nest. So in the aftermath of the battle in July 1863, Alexander Garner, a photographer, come here. He was already famed with doing the photos of Antietam, and he come here to Gettysburg. And this is the spot of probably one of his most famous photographs of the dead Confederate sharpshooter. Or was he? Well, that soldier was actually killed here in Gettysburg during the battle for Devil's Den, but he wasn't killed right here. He was killed in this area behind us. And his body was dragged to this spot by Alexander Garner and his assistants, and they staged him here. This is the spot of where the original photograph was taken. You can still match up the photograph from the rocks here, and it has become one of the most synonymous photos associated with the Battle of Gettysburg. That's just a little bit about Devil's Den and the sights here at Devil's Den. Come see it for yourself. You won't be disappointed. And we're going to get out of here. We got more to see and do here in Gettysburg for the 160th. Make sure you come here and visit Gettysburg if you ever get a chance and visit this site. It's really cool. So until next time, guys, keep preserving history. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next one.